Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Dominions 5, Warriors of the Faith. I am Marcus Aurelius, and I noticed in the last episode that we did not go over our game settings. So before we get started, which we will be doing quite soon, I wanted to quickly go over them. So this is the typical default settings of the game. I'm going to raise special sight frequency to 70. The reason for this is I really enjoy special sights. Not only do you get more gems out of them, which leads to a more magical game, but for roleplay purposes, they open up interesting avenues for you, like, for example, special sites that allow you to recruit independent mage that's really cool, or they give you bonuses to certain types of magic, like a special site that might make conjurations cheaper, so we might want to focus on building a fort there and doing all of our conjurations from there. Things like that impact the story, which I think is cool. I don't think it necessarily makes the game harder or easier. Again, it's just a story thing. I'm going to leave random events at rare, because I find in the single-player game, even at rare, there are tons of random events, and for our Misfortune Dominion, trust me, we're going to get a lot of bad ones. I didn't know at first. I thought this was just an on or off switch, so I think I have a set to minor story events enabled. I wanted all of them, because I thought from a roleplay perspective that would be really good, but we're going to have to stick with just minor. Essentially, what's cool about this is story events are like long-term, multi-turn events that have actually a rather large impact on the game and make it interesting. I'm going to enable the score graphs because I don't see any reason in a single-player game why we shouldn't be able to see how we're doing relative to everyone else. Because I want as many of our commanders as possible in the Hall of Fame, since that's fun, I'm buffing up the Hall of Fame entries to 20, which is the max. I'm also buffing up global enchantments to 9, which is the max. I am unlimiting artifact forging. Essentially what this means is once you get to the higher levels of construction research, which is going to take us really long anyway, you have individual artifacts that only one can exist at any given time. And with the limit, that means you can only do one of those a turn. But I figure if we have the capacity to do more than one a turn, then why not use it? The human AI level is not important. That just essentially means that if I were to quit the game and go AI, which I'm not going to do, that's the level. The actual difficulty of the opponents that we're going to be facing is one step up from normal, which is difficult. I know some other LPers do mighty and impossible and higher, but I find that it doesn't make the AI any smarter. It just gives them a whole bunch of resources. So you're dealing with just humongous stacks over and over and over again, and I just don't think from a storytelling perspective that it's really fun to fight the same battle over and over again in the same province, just like a stalemate forever. I figured we'd want to have the story move along a bit more quickly than that. So again, I'm not playing this to prove what an expert I am. I'm playing this to have fun and tell a good story. I'm going to set research to slightly easy. Essentially, the reason for that is because I want us to make it by the end of the game to the higher level summon spells and national spells because they're fun to watch, and I'd rather not have the game end before we're even capable of casting some of the really cool spells. This applies to all nations, not just me. It does make our Drain Dominion a little less problematic, but that's just the way it is. There's other things I'm doing to make the game a bit harder, which I'll talk about in a minute. So this is a new feature. It just basically means that your starting research points can be randomly applied to certain fields. I'm going to get rid of that and make it so that we just get an equal amount to each field, and we could choose ourselves where we want to go. Just like my previous campaigns, my Thrones of Ascension settings are pretty standard. I want 1 level 3 throne, 2 level 2s, and I'm going to have 5 level 1s, with the amount of points needed to win the game up to 7, which is half plus 1. And so you could win, for example, by getting the level 3 throne and the 2 level 2s, or by getting all the level 1s and one of the level 2s. But I like it because it keeps the game from dragging on too long. It's still challenging, but not to the point where you have to spend hours taking every single throne. I think it's a good balance. And of course I am going to allow renaming, which is a huge aspect of my campaigns. So these are the settings that we are going to be playing under. I'm not going to tell you who our AI opponents are. We'll discover that as we play. But I tried really hard to make sure I got a mixture of nations that had different strengths and weaknesses and different paths of magic, so we could see different and more interesting battles as the game progresses. Alright, so let's get started. I have a game set already. Uruk 1. Ursula, goddess of Uruk, spring in the year 0 of the Ascension Wars. In the beginning, there was chaos. You could read that if you'd like. Now the wheel has turned once again. For Ursula especially, because this is a whole brand new wheel. I don't know if I made this entirely clear, but Ursula was the pantocrator of a completely different world. So this is not the same world later on or anything like that. She literally threw herself into the void and ended up in a completely different universe, a completely different plane of existence. So these Enkidu have never heard of her. She is completely alien to them. And that is also my explanation for them being slightly different than the Enkidu of that she is familiar with. All right. So the first thing I like to do is just kind of get a feeling for our surroundings. So it looks like there's a neat little river to the north of us. That's a strategic barrier. In the winter, it can be crossed, but in the other 3/4 of the year, it cannot. And it looks like the only legitimate crossing of this river is this bridge right here, next to the throne. So that's pretty neat. To the southeast, we have another river, only this one has multiple crossings. We have a body of water to our east and another body of water to our west. Do they connect? Nope, they are separate. All right. Now, I do have north-south and east-west set. God, what's the word I'm looking for? A wraparound. I feel this makes the game harder and more interesting. So as I mentioned earlier, there are some things I did to make the game easier, but more roleplay and thematic, and other things I made to make the game harder. And this is one of them. This way you can't box yourself into a corner. You have to defend all of your sides all the time. To allow for strategic choices, though, I did up on the random map generator the amount of rivers and the amount of mountains. So we're going to have a lot of defensible choke points and areas that we can expand into. It makes the game more interesting than just an entire wall of plains where every province can be moved to by every other province. I think it adds a little more variety to the world. To the west here, we have, looks like a broken river. There's a little river here. Actually, is that a river or is that? Yeah, that's a river. And then we have a river here with 2 crossings, one down here and one here. Okay, cool. And this mountain range looks like is a border mountain, so it can only be like that. Okay, very interesting. So just looking at it from right now, I think our best bet would be to expand into this area between these 2 rivers, to expand here. Basically, keep everything under this river. We're probably not going to move north too quickly because the throne is blocking us, and throne provinces are usually well defended, especially if this is a higher level throne, which we'll see in a moment. Let's actually take a look at the thrones to see like where they are for the most part related to us. We have one here to the east, directly next to us. We have 2 here to the south, one to the direct south and one to the southwest. Another one here to the west-southwest across a river. There's one to the southeast, one here in the water to our east. And now since we're wrapping around, we're going back to where we were. So then over here, it looks like there's one here in this forest. We've already seen that one. There's one down here, and there's one here. So that is all of our thrones. So from a strategic perspective, barring where our enemies start or what's going on inside the game, and you can always push end, by the way, to get to the default magnification level, we're going to want to go for this throne first, and these 2, I guess, following that. We'll see how that goes. All right, cool. So we already know about our sites. I talked about that in the last episode, so let's get started. Let's actually see what's going on. So first off, let's rename some folks. Shamash Ha here, or Shamash Hazir actually, is going to be renamed to, and again, I'm going off the list, first come, first serve, so it's all chronological. So this gentleman is going to be known as Nergal Aresh, which is kind of a interesting sounding name. I guess it could be Sumerian. Kind of has a Middle Eastern ring to it. And our first scout, and I was considering not naming the scouts, but I've decided from a roleplay perspective, it's actually really cool to name the scouts because the scouts are going to be the ones basically traveling the world and witnessing battles that take place not by our own troops. And so they're going to have probably the best story to tell of any units in the game. Although they do tend to die. I'm going to make sure that I work very hard to keep them alive. And eventually, when we have the capacity, I'm going to have them come back home and get stealth items if they survive long enough, which will make them really, really hard to capture. One mechanic change in Dominions 5 that I'm actually not really fond of is in Dominions 4, if you had a unit retreat from a battle and you had a province that belonged to you nearby, they would automatically retreat into that province, such as scouts, for example. But now it's a random thing. Some of them might retreat, some of them might not. So you lose them at random, which I'm not a big fan of, but I could see why the developers did it, just to make things a bit more tense, make it so that you don't want to risk losing battles. And our first scout and the intrepid explorer who's going to tell us about our world is going to be Trip Fields. All right, cool. All right, so first things first, Trip, I want you to check out the throne. Tell me what's going on there. Let's actually set him up already to keep him safe. We're going to retreat. We're going to move him to the back. Next, Nergal, you are going to become our prophet, the prophet of Ursula. Praise her. And I want to recruit... Okay, so the first thing I'm going to recruit, as I mentioned, is an Erishdinger, so that we avoid getting any negative misfortune events, or at least have a good chance of avoiding it early on, where they could really hurt us. So she's a bit more expensive than your average Nin or Naditu, but I like her fortune teller effect. I'm not going to start recruiting Maidens of the Moon, I don't think, until like the winter, because they're not as useful until Ursula arrives. Ursula is dormant, by the way. She's going to be arriving in about 12 months, give or take a month. She's going to be essentially going around Uruk and convincing all the NCs, the priest kings of the different cities, to support her. And she has many ways of doing that. She would prefer to be peaceful. She would prefer to seduce them or otherwise get them on her side through diplomacy. But if she has to, she is a formidable figure and she can use force to get her way. So I presume it will take about a year for her to unite the country. In the meantime, her chief advisors, Chris and Colonial, are going to be leading our war efforts while she's running around doing her thing. And we are going to just recruit some more basic units. I'm going to go with just our base experiment for right now, for the first turn, because we don't have a ton of resources, having only our capital. As far as magic research, I'm going to go from construction 2 to get owl quills, which means we need to find some air sites as soon as possible. And from there, I think I want to go into alteration just to get up to protection, which is a spell that some of our NCs and our shamans can cast, which will help our troops survive a little bit more. So that's alteration. Was that 3? Yep. From there, I think I want to go to Thaumaturgy 4, which will give us all of our site searching spells. I'm going to start site searching normally, but I want to eventually get to the higher level site searching. I'm not entirely sure on this. I might want to go back into construction or even higher in alteration. Conjuration is more for the later part of the game, because the first thing that we get that's really interesting is the buffaloes at level 3, but they're kind of expensive. And Kusarikus at level 4, even more expensive for what you get. And the Ugalu we don't get till level 5, so it's going to take us a while to get there anyway. Plus, we're going to need a bunch of gems in order to make that worthwhile. So let's just go Thaumaturgy to 4, and I might arrange that differently as the time goes on. Okay, Trip sneaking. Nergal's becoming our prophet. We are recruiting. Our setup of research is set up. I don't want to show you who our enemies are until we learn about them naturally, so we're not going to look at that. I am going to change a few of the map filters, though. I like to put the Dominion candles and the names. I stay away from the income box because I find it's really big and obtrusive. But now, from a roleplay perspective, we know the areas around us. So we have the Cloudbreakers to the southeast, which is a highland province. We have a little village of farmlands to the south, so this is very important for us if we can take this to improve our income. And it actually has mountains too, which is great. That's Erebon. Stonegrave Mountains to the southwest. Simri to the northwest, which is a coastal province. Summer Bay to the north across the river. The wasteland of Ban Kish to the northeast. And the throne is Polgrave. For some reason, we also know a couple other names here, like Assad up here. Gwyneth Merks is this swamp area to our east. Isurian is this other coastal province. Lyratos is south of the Cloudbreakers. We have Annika, Amberfields, Zaburia, Erd, and Stonegrave Mountains. I don't know why I'm seeing so far. And then Sirmiak over here. Normally you only see the names of the things that you've discovered, but whatevs. Okay, so I think we're good. Let's end this turn. All right, so we know for a fact that we have Eru as one of our opponents, and they have just named Kumail, the Milesian champion, as their prophet of the goddess Nedina. Tian Qi has Siming, the general, is the prophet of Fian. I hope Fian has fun fighting against us. And then, of course, Uruk, Nergal Aresh, the Enkidu commander, shall hereby be known as the prophet of Ursula. Praise her. Ishtar Beles is going to be Casual Dread. Alright, so Casual Dread is basically going to sit here and research and protect our capital from the ravages of our Misfortune Dominion, which is super useful. Alright, so we had Trip Fields go over here into Polgrave and check with the local barbarian population if they have found Ursula in their hearts, and if they're willing to accept her. Seems like they are not, so they're going to have to be converted forcibly. What else do we have around us? Naturally, we want to attack the weakest link first. So Simri here has heavy infantry militia. That's not too bad. Stonegrave has archers, heavy infantries, and long deads. Ooh, that's spooky. That means there's probably some mages in there too, necromancers. So we might want to save this one for last. Well, last after the throne. The throne does appear, though, to be a lower level throne. It only has barbarians and heavy infantry. Unfortunately, Trip is a scout and not a spy, so he can't tell us exactly what throne it is. But we will find out soon, I'm sure. Erebon has militia and light infantries, which is pretty neat for a farmland province. Sometimes they have knights or cavalry, and I'm glad they don't, so we should be able to take that without too much trouble. And the Cloudbreakers have Wolf Tribe, which are super weak, so I think we are going to go knock on their door and bring the love and light of Ursula to them. How are we going to set this up? I think we're going to have just really basic. We're going to have our guys just rush right into battle. They have shields. They can handle some arrows. We're going to attack closest, and we're going to back them up with our archers. And I guess we'll have you guys fire enemy archers. Nergal, we don't really need Divine Blessing yet because we don't have any Sacred Troops. Oh, I made a mistake in the last episode. Final Rest is actually our anti-undead spell. It's Word of Thorns that is our customized nature variety smite spell that causes entanglement. So we're going to make them courageous, and then we're going to just smite our foes with our Word of Thorns. Alright, Nergal, we're going to put you up kind of in the middle of the archers. Hopefully you'll be fine. I guess you could take an arrow to the knee or the face, but let's hope that you don't. Casual Dread is going to hang out. As far as recruitment, now that we have our Erishdinger, I need an air mage. So let's go with a Gudu to see if we can get 50% chance of an air mage, although we need an earth mage too, so either one will be good. And we're going to keep going with these guys, although now I'm going to mix it up and do 50-50 archers and spearmen. Alright, Nergal, let's bring the love and light of Ursula to the Cloudbreakers. See how that goes. Casual Dread, you're going to mind your own business. And Trip Fields, I kind of want you to check this area out to the south. So let's go to Isurian, and then from there we'll head on to Lyratos and across the bridge maybe, or maybe we might go west. I don't know, but we'll see. I think we have a pretty good sense of what's going on north of us, and it's a nice little choke point, so I'm not too worried about it. You know, I never get mercenaries, but someone mentioned in the comments, and this is actually really smart, that if I could find some amphibious mercenaries, it would help me get underwater really quickly. So let's just see what's available. Currently, we just have the Black Fists, and they're not even available. They're just hanging there. Oh, it's not my province. Right. 20 men and demand 135 gold. I feel like I'd rather spend our gold on Enkidu. They're a shy, reclusive people right now, and I don't think necessarily that they'd be willing to spend large sums of money on human mercenaries, especially how ill-treated they've been by humans in the past. Again, amphibious was one thing, now it'd be super useful, but regular humans, Now, these, by the way, these reports, these scouting reports, are based on spotty data. So we could be wrong about this, like as much as there could be half as many, or they could be like twice as many. Now, Trip is a bit more effective, so we know that he's probably about right, but our estimates for these guys can vary over time. And I think that's it. I think we're good. So let's see how things go, huh? First attack. Machaca. All right, Machaca. Now, they are especially dangerous for us because we're going to be bark skinning everyone at some point. And one negative of bark skin is it makes you susceptible to fire. And Machaca loves them some fire. They also ride around on giant spiders. And cavalry in this game have been pretty souped up, in my opinion. I've heard others say that cavalry are weaker, but I think now with the new flanking mechanic and how fast people move, I think cavalry are actually quite good. And they have Suesi, the Machaca commander, is now the prophet of Tinnet. And Agartha. I threw Agartha in there because I played them in my multiplayer campaign, so it's just fun, I think, to fight people that we have been before. And they've made Hermon, the cave captain, the prophet of Python. Python, huh? Okay. And the Cloudbreakers. Let's see how we did in our first ever battle. The Enkidu, led by Chris and Colonial, although they're not in the battlefield. While Ursula's out doing things, let's see how they fare. We're throwing some arrows back and forth. We're both really terrible at it. Okay, let's see how the battle's going in the front here. Our Enkidu are larger than these humans. So, oh, there's our Word of Thorns. It didn't kill him, but it definitely set him aside, and now he's gone. Oh, boom. All right. Their infantry have been taken out. Now we're rushing forward to fight their archers. Under a hail of arrow fire, our brave Enkidu march. They're led by a wolf tribe shaman. He has some nature magic, nothing that we haven't seen. We are not scared of you. Okay, now they're in melee, they're not quite as distressing. But as you can see, even against little hunters armed in leather or furs or whatever, we're not super awesome in terms of offensive ability. But we're enough, and they are routed. Let's see if we'll get that commander. Doesn't really matter, he'll die anyway, but let's just see if we get him on the battlefield. Come on, come on. Actually, we're going to pause real quick, and that's because I want to show you something that is new to Dominions 5, which I think is awesome and is really perfect for our role-playing interests. And that is that we can look at a battle unit overview, which has every unit in the battle, shows you how many hit points they have, how many fatigue points, and how much experience. I wish it would show how many kills they have. Developers, if you are watching, which you probably aren't, but that would be really neat if you could have that there too. But let's look at overall how we're doing here. So we did lose one spearman, looks like. One poor spearman. But otherwise, looks like we didn't lose anybody. And we defeated these guys pretty handily. But let's take a look at Nergal Aresh. 32 hit points. I want to see how many kills he had, though. I guess we'll see that in the end screen. But we can look at him and see actually exactly what he did during the battle. So the first thing he did was he cast Sermon of Courage. He did that again, just as I told him to. Then he prepared to cast Word of Thorns. Damage roll. So it looks like an arrow might have hit him, I guess. But it didn't do any damage, which is great. That's the only thing I could assume this is. And then he cast Word of Thorns, which the Barbarian Chief failed to resist. And so he did 12 points of damage on the Barbarian Chief, though he stayed alive. As we saw, he was envined. Then we cast Word of Thorns again, which we attacked with a Wolf Tribe Warrior. He also failed to resist, but it looks like we didn't kill him either. Then he cast Holy Avenger, which is a waste. Another thing I'd love it if we could do here, although I'm sure it would make programming the game really hard, is to go more than 5 orders, because they start casting stupid things. Or at least, like, you know how with infantry or archers, you can tell them, like, you can give them 5 specific orders, but then you tell them what to do, what to focus on later on, like fire closest or whatever. I wish for your mages, you could set one spell and just say, do this spell, if you can. So like that would make things so much better, because you could set like one particular spell, like Lightning Bolt or Wooden Warriors, and your mage will, you know, focus on casting that spell as the battle wears on. I don't think that would be too hard to program, again, since it's already done for the units, and that would make battle just so much better, instead of them casting kind of random spells that don't make any sense. You know, the AI can override it. Like if I'm saying, okay, keep casting Lightning Bolt, but there's no enemies or whatever, or there's just a super combatant or whatever, but it'd be neat if you could say, hey, focus on this for the rest of the battle as long as you can. Now, either way, it looks like he got hit with another arrow, but no damage. And that's him. All right, cool. So that's our battle. Now, if you guys want to see more detailed battle logs, let me know. I could change that, but I just think it's a big wall of text. I'd rather just look at it specifically. And it looks like everybody got away. All right, so the details. Unfortunately, Nergal Aresh didn't kill anyone. He hit 2 guys, but didn't actually kill them, so that stinks. But our archers did 1 kill. To see what I was saying about our archers not being super awesome. I mean, these guys were basically wearing furs, so any arrow that hit them would have killed them. Our soldiers took out 9, and our base experiment took out 13, but paid a price. They lost 1. All right. So Ursula now has 1 more province. It looks like we already found a magic site. Ooda lolly. What do we got here? Air gems. Okay, so you remember I said our strategy is going to be dictated by the kinds of gems that we find early on. So this means that we now can start forging owl quills. I mean, not right away. We need 5 of them, but we're starting off good in terms of air. So initially, obviously, we want to conquer the areas around our capital because that allows our capital to have more resources in which to recruit more troops. I don't want to go straight for the throne. That seems like a bad idea. So Nergal is going to move over to Erebon to bring us some money. See that? Income 74. That's really good. I mean, our capital's huge at 418, but as you can see here, the Cloudbreakers is only 23. So this will make things much better for us. Anything that falls under Ursula's dominion, we could see the income that it's going to give. So Polgrave also will give us 74, and Summer Bay's great at 151. Mostly income is relative to the population of a province. So we're going to want to focus on high population provinces, and that's where we're going to want to build forts too, because the forts directly improve the income. And recruitment points are also based on population. It's another new thing of Dominions 5 I'm not entirely thrilled about, but let's quickly go over them. So before, you were limited by the amount of gold you had and the amount of resources your province had. Well, now you have something called recruitment points, which are based on population. So even if you have tons of resources, like say you build a fortress in a mountain province, you could theoretically, if the population is low, have very low recruitment points, which means that your resources are going to waste. You won't be able to recruit things. As you can see, different units have different recruitment point costs. Our national units are cheaper than independent units. So these guys only cost 9 recruitment points. 17 here, 15 here. Our special units are 16. The chariots are 80, which is huge. Commanders do not cost recruitment points. They cost commander points, which is also a new thing in Dominions 5. What commander points means is that some commanders take longer than others, and especially when you do not have a fort, it really makes recruiting commanders hard. But there's one cool benefit to it, which is if you have commanders that require less points than the number of commander points, you can recruit multiple of them. So for example, our commander only requires 1 point, as does our scout. So we could, instead of recruiting 1 mage, which I'll take 2, except for our N2 and Mashmashu, which take 4, we could get 2 commanders or 2 scouts in 1 turn, which is kind of neat when you need them. But we don't need them. So now that we have... Well, first of all, let's check and see what kind of... We did get an air one. Okay, perfect. So that's exactly what I want for right now. So we're cool with that. We're going to let him sit until we can start forging owl quills. Let's get one of these guys just to keep disease at bay. And again, I want to reiterate that they only heal diseases, not afflictions. So if one of our commanders gets like a chest wound or a missing eye or something, they're stuck with that for right now. It's just disease that we can cure. And we'll keep on with our strategy of recruiting the low-tier units. All right. Who is our air guy going to be? This is going to be our Owl Quill Forger, so that's kind of an important position in the hierarchy right now of the armies of Ursula. He will be knights. Not like knights in shining armor, but like hot August knights. All right, welcome to the team knights. You're 36 years old, so you're pretty young. You're not going to get old till you're 50, which is really good. And like everyone else, you are sacred. Perfect. Okay, so what did Tripp discover in Isurian? Well, Wolf Tribe. More Wolf Tribe. Easy to kill, not a big deal. They're just kind of outside of our area of convenience right now, but eventually we should be able to take them without too much trouble. Lyratos looks like it has Lion Tribe. They're a little more difficult than Wolf Tribe, but not by a lot. And he's going to head down there, because that will allow him to cross the bridge. Oh, let's see in Cloudbreakers if we can recruit anything cool. Not really. So, of course, a shaman, because we can recruit a shaman in anywhere that doesn't have a fort. But the indies aren't that great. I am going to do 5 province defense. I'm going to start with 5 for every province that we conquer, just to keep like scouts and other things from being able to take them. Eventually, when I have the money, I'm going to put everybody up to 11 to stop like random barbarian attacks and stuff. And anything that borders an enemy, I'm going to go straight to 11. And eventually it might be 21 or 31, depending on how much of a choke point it is. In multiplayer, you don't really want to rely too much on province defense, but I find in single player, it's actually really, really helpful. So, all right, cool. Okay, recruitment is all set up. We're not recruiting anything here. We're moving here. He's moving. We're researching. Everything looks good. Let's move on to the next turn. This will be our last turn of the episode since we're rounding past 30 minutes. So we're up to construction 1. Not that helpful to us. Oh, Bandar Log, the monkeys. Now they're really good at astral magic. And Bagwandas, the Bandar commander, shall hereby be known as the prophet of Yama. And Erebon. Okay, so we lost a spearman. Let's see how we do now. Who are we up against? Just some regular guys. They have 3 commanders, it looks like. We have Fraz. And Gezban, I guess? Not a huge fan of this new font. And Theag. Okay, archers are starting the battle, not doing too much of note. Our spearmen are engaging. Oh, he just got hit. Good thing they have good hit points, so they're staying alive, but they're definitely taking some damage from the javelins that were tossed at them. We can speed this up a little bit. Hopefully Nergal will be able to actually kill someone in this battle and start getting some experience so we can be a legendary hero. The heavy infantry are holding out a bit longer than the light infantry, but not long enough, and they are running away. So let's see here. Did we lose anyone? It doesn't appear that we did. Nergal Aresh now has 6 experience. Militia resisted his Word of Thorns twice. And then he did hit one, but did 0 damage. And then hit another one, but did 0 damage. Okay, so his Word of Thorns is not super awesome if it can't even hit militia. I'm not too thrilled about that. Oh well. So our soldiers got 6 kills, our spearmen got 10, and poor Nergal still hasn't killed anyone. But hey, we took a province with no loss. I will take it. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, well that is the first episode. So next episode, we're going to take a look at what we can find in this new province of ours. Hopefully we're going to make tons of money, and we'll continue our expansion in the name of Ursula, who should be arriving now that we're in the summer. So she's only about a half a year away from arriving on the scene, so that's fantastic. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, I am Marcus Aurelius. This is Dominions 5 Warriors of the Faith by Illwinter Game Design. I would like to thank you a ton for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day and go out and do amazing things. Have a good one.